All right, so we're all here, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, we're all here.
Awesome. Are we ready to go?
Yes.
Most of you have arrived in Burin right around October 16th. It's Firth for the dwarves. It's Winterfilth, I guess is what it's called for the hobbits.
Terrible.
Yes, it's a terrible name. So October 16th is when most of you arrive. So you guys are meeting for the first time sort of late that night,
Okay.
we'll say. So I guess maybe what we could do first is just have people volunteer to go first to talk about their character. Race, class. So it's not called it's a culture, class, anything, background, anything else you want to say, why you're on the adventure, character's name, of course. Anybody want to volunteer to start?
I can go ahead and start.
Okay.
So my character's name is Angolan. He's a wood elf. He was actually of the Mirkwood elves. He was exiled though. He is on the quest when he was younger. He had he's a scholar, by the way. And he had an experience with an ancient creature of shadow when he was younger. And has pretty much spent his entire life kind of consumed with the lore behind the evil forces of Middle-earth. And he's kind of a socially awkward character and kind of quirky and not your typical wood elf for sure. But he's kind of on this quest pursuing some knowledge that he's been after for years. And he thought Elrond and Rivendell might be able to help him. And he's kind of since started a new quest that he found out about. So,
and he's got a mighty soothing touch too.
Yeah. Soothe the hell out of you.
It feels nice when he touches you.
He's got nice hands.
Nice hands.
So you have shadow lore as one of your skills, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I don't think I covered terribly detailed in the origin sessions is with Adventures of Middle-earth, which is what we're playing. I didn't cover that before. There are 3 new skills. One of them replaces Arcana, and that skill is called Lore. And that has to do with ancient history, ballads, songs, like remembering something that you had seen on an ancient map, like that kind of thing. And that basically replaces your Arcana. And not everybody has that skill, though. I know a few of you do. Shadow lore is more so where lore is more like past information. Shadow lore is more like sort of what's going on with the enemy, knowing that bits and pieces about the enemy, dark history, I guess. But mostly what's going on in the present with Sauron and his forces. And then the other new skill is called Tradition. And Tradition is the skill that's used heavily when you're doing an audience. If you're going to Erebor and you want to meet with King Dain, the king under the mountain, then there would be sort of an audience role. And you can use persuasion for an audience, but there is that. Does anyone have the Tradition skill?
Yes, I do.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad somebody does. So, Josh, since you chimed in, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. My character is Raiken. He was born a woodman, born in 2927 of the Mountain Hall. As a young man, he was one of 2 brothers, son of Bjormund. And as a young man, he lost his father, who was taken hostage, taken prisoner while on patrol in Mirkwood, and that sort of stained his young life. And he and his brother. And from that point on, he and his brother sort of slowly fell into obsession over what had happened to their father, particularly because he wasn't killed. It was known that he wasn't killed. He was taken hostage. So the young boys, their mother, Galavara, sort of took up arms instead of their father and took over his duties. I guess that's sort of pretty common for the Woodman people. And the the young Raiken and his brother were sort of left to fend for themselves. And as this obsession with their father grew, they become sort of more and more emboldened. And at one point, they decided that they were going to go into Mirkwood and try to figure out what it was that had happened to their father. They were going to retrace his steps. So they snuck out of the mountain hall and across the river into Mirkwood. And there they spent a long time, 2 weeks, I think it was, patrolling Mirkwood, trying to retrace their father's footsteps from information they had heard from other elders about what had happened to their father. While they were in Mirkwood, something really crazy happened to them, and they never really talked about it with anybody else. But 2 weeks later, they returned back to the mountain hall, and when they got there, that both of them were sort of changed. They didn't really talk to each other anymore, and they really became sort of withdrawn from everyone for a time. And Raiken sort of came out of it. It came out of the far end of it, and discovered his duty to his people, and sort of took over the charge of the Woodman, which is essentially just protecting their people and sort of fighting the shadow in Mirkwood. But his brother continued his obsession and continued to return to Mirkwood in search of their father, and had disappeared for a really long time. And just before we started this quest, had reappeared at Raiken's home, which was the home that they grew up in, and told Raiken that he had discovered something and demanded that Raiken come with him. But Raiken was now duty-bound, sort of serving the chieftain directly, and decided he wouldn't go with his brother. So now he's sort of troubled by that. And not only did he decide that he wouldn't go with his brother, but that next day the chieftain decided that he would go in the other direction across Middle-earth to go to Bree. Or pardon me, to go to Rivendell and then to Bree, and that sort of leads us to where we are now. And I have a dog. His name is Bear.
And just because he's mostly worthless right now, doesn't mean he will continue to be, right?
That's true. He was pretty good in the last fight. I mean, he was a good distraction at the most.
Yeah. So Raiken has a cultural trait, I guess you could call it, where if Raiken can sit down with him during a fellowship period, he can train Bear to do actions. Is that right?
Yes, to do cool stuff. Yeah.
But
right now, look at me.
So basically what happened last time is we had some wargs that basically ran right across Bear's face, and I was like, Bear's not going to do nothing, right?
Yeah.
So we had Bear attack them, and he did pretty well.
I think we sort of determined that the rule would be that until I get a chance to train him, he will attack, but he will just attack whatever he feels like if we get in trouble.
Right. He's a dog, right? He's wild, kind of. So yeah.
And he's a very, very large dog. He's like 4.5 or 5 feet tall at his head. Like,
did we ever get a picture for him?
Yeah, here's a picture.
Cool. I'll show it to everybody. So he looks like a wolfhound.
Yeah.
Did that pop up for everybody?
Nice.
Well, maybe we can have Tesoro ride him at some
big old Irish wolfhound.
Yeah, Tesoro could ride him for sure.
Well, that's a good introduction to Tesoro.
There you go. Your turn.
All right. So Tesoro he was born in the Shire in 2918, which makes him about, how old is he? He's 35. He's 35 right now. Okay.
A young chap.
Yes. Young one, but optimal for traveling. He's been So yeah, he started getting kind of bored of the Shire around when he was 25, and when Bilbo returned with all his riches from the mountain, the desire to adventure started to bloom within him, and so one night on his 25th birthday, he left the Shire to go towards Bree. And he was attacked by a pack of wolves, and that's when Marco's character came to save him. So they started becoming friends, and Tesoro's been going back and forth between the Shire and Bree, kind of living in both. But he's been spending a lot more time in Bree, especially lately, because it's just more interesting, and he hears more news about stuff going on in the world.
I think that's a pretty good. Like he's just a different kind of hobbit, right? Like he's got the Took spirit, you know, like the Bilbo inspired him, and he's kind of followed in his footsteps in some ways, right?
Yeah. The other
smarter or stupider than Pippin?
He's just as curious, but definitely smarter.
He likes to think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other hobbits find him to be queer, as they do.
Yeah.
So he's been spending a lot more time in Bree, and it was recently his 35th birthday, which is when he was meeting Marco's character. And Marco was like, "Hey, I keep forgetting your character's name. Sorry, Feredir was like, hey, we gotta, I gotta this thing."
Yep, which we'll get to, right? So,
Yes, we will.
all right, I guess good time for Feredir.
So that was Max describing his Hobbit character. I'm just explaining this so that you guys, because they're speaking from the same computer, and this is Marco, his brother, talking about his Dunedain.
Yeah. So in real life, Max and I look almost exactly the same, and we're the same height. But essentially, you subtract 2 feet from one of us and add it to the other, and that's like the height difference of our characters. So,
I thought we were talking about real life there for a second.
So Feredir, son of Califar, he's a Dunedain ranger, sort of like Aragorn. And actually, his family line, going as far back as the fall of Arnor, his family line was responsible for teaching the royal line to survive in the wilderness. So it was sort of like while the king was busy with his duties for his people, one of my ancestors would teach the next generation how to survive in the wild. So that's sort of a bit of my ancestry. Recently, Aragorn actually just left Rivendell to start adventuring. My character actually wanted to go with him, but Aragorn said that he felt like there was things yet for me to be accomplished, but he couldn't really tell what it was. So I stayed here on a hunch, and around then I met Max's character, Tesoro, and I sort of taught him how to fight, and we became good friends. And
I taught him how to smoke.
Oh yeah,
Smoke pipe.
yeah. So we smoke a lot of pipe. We smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah.
The 2 of us. He's better at it though.
It's the finest weed in the South part of things.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that pretty much brings it up to about here, when I finally figure out why I'm, like, what my task is and what I'm supposed to be doing now. So
Great, and that leaves the dwarf.
Alright, my name is Burin. I'm from Erebor, also known as Lonely Mountain. Part of the Redbeards. I was raised by a great warrior and very brave adventurer who will remain unnamed at this time.
Nice.
I wish to have similar accomplishments to my father one day. So my current quest was to meet in Rivendell and assist in the cause of the elves. This is actually my real first adventure outside of Erebor, and an extended trip from home. Other than training and being your usual badass, I enjoy quiet evenings in the deepest parts of the mountain, long walks to Long Lake, and dinner at Molly's Meat Pies.
Awesome. Everybody likes Molly's meat pies.
Mm-hmm. That's
All right.
Have a good meat pie.
So we have basically one of every race. I mean, there are cultural differences and other, kinds of elves that you can play, but we've expanded the rules a little bit. I think playing this far to the west of the Wilderland, but I think the story is great. I think your backstories were incredible, and I think it we're all here for a common purpose, and we'll kind of find out what that is now. You guys didn't go too much into how you got roped into this quest, but I think some of that will come out. So if you're good, I'm going to try to do less talking in this campaign. I've always kind of done too much talking as a DM, but one of the ways I'm going to get around that this time is to have you do more checks, or for example, we have a scholar with us that's Christian's elf character, and we have a ranger wanderer, a Dunedain wanderer, who has a lot of what are they called, known regions. Is that right?
Yeah, known lands.
Known lands. And so if there's a particular piece of lore or history or geography that sort of fits into somebody's knowledge base, what I'm going to do is if you look in your handouts, there's a whole section on lore, and I'm just basically going to share a lore card with you, and you're going to be able to disseminate that information to the group. And if I need to fill in, if I need to fill in, I can. But is everybody ready to go?
Let's do
Yeah.
Indeed.
this. Leroy Jenkins.
Sorry, I keep coughing in your ear. My mute button is not working correctly.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. So you guys are late on October 16th, so it's just starting to get colder. You figure the mountains that you guys just traveled through, the Misty Mountains, and it was starting to get pretty brisk up there. Down on sort of the flatlands, it's not too bad. But you arrive late. Pony, it's actually pretty sparse in terms of attendance. The old man Butterbur is there. Barlaman Butterbur. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. I recognize him.
Yes, sir.
So this, again, for those of you that are watching on Twitch, this story, and people have alluded to the dates, but this story takes place in the year 2953, after the last meeting of the White Council, and sort of in between the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, closer to the Hobbit, closer to the Battle of the Five Armies than I'd say Frodo's setting out from the Shire. So you are all sort of gathered when Tesoro and Feredir arrive. You see Feredir. You recognize Gildor Inglorion, and let me share him with you as well. So originally he's from Rivendell, and he looks like this. And Gildor was actually in the movies. You saw him when he was ferrying people. And he's in the books too, I believe. They spend more time on it in Fellowship. But do you remember when Sam and Frodo see the elves passing through the Shire?
The forest, yeah.
The forest. They actually spend the night with him in the Fellowship, but in the movie they just see him, and they basically describe it as the elves heading to the Grey Havens, basically setting sail for Middle Earth along the straight road. And Gildor, his task is to usher these elves from Rivendell to the Grey Havens, but he has another job as well, which I'm going to get to. So as you sit down at the table, Gildor greets you all, and he has kind of a long narrative here, so has lots of good information in it, so pay attention. He says, thank you for coming. For those who don't know me, I am Gildor Inglorion of Rivendell. For centuries, I've been tasked with ushering my elven brethren to the Grey Havens. There, my kin depart from Middle-earth on one of Círdan's fine vessels. They sail along the straight road to the Undying Lands. For those who are not ready to depart these lands, I take them to Tower Hills, to Elos Tyrion. There, speakers of the fair tongue catch a glimpse of a great relic, a palantiri, one of the last known seeing stones. These were gifted to your ancestors, and he points to Feredir. And the Númenóreans brought them here to this land after their home had passed under the waves. Only 4 remain, but 7 there were. The stone of Elos Tyrion was called the Elendil Stone, named after the first High King of the Dunedain of Arnor and Gondor. Where the others could communicate with each other, this seeing stone could only see unto the west. Aman, called Tol Eressëa. This stone is a gateway to the realm of our gods, and it has been stolen. This is why you are here. This fellowship has been assembled at the request of a great council of elves and wizards. You have come from all over Middle-earth, and each of you bring a skill and knowledge set that will enable your quest. You have one goal, to recover the Elendil Stone and return it here to me in Burin. At your return, you must make haste. You will leave on the morrow, but for now, you must have questions. Introduce yourself and speak your mind.
Ever since you said there was a number of these things, I was like, I think I know what this is.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I guess Mike, a little bit of role playing. My character just sort of looks flabbergasted. Maybe even a little upset. I guess he's not entirely sure what the gravity of the thing is, and kind of wondering why this is why we're doing this. So I guess I need to know. I guess he would ask why it's so important that we recover it, and why us.
Before I comment, and I'm happy to comment and sort of fill in, I have more information to give you. If anyone else, I feel like Feredir, this would be like, or even Christian's character, the elf, would chime in here.
Yeah, I was gonna say Angolan would be like kind of like flabbergasted, like, what do you mean? Like, how can you not know what the seeing stones are? He's like, by the way, I'm happy to do this, but perchance would I be able to study the stone before we return it to you? Nothing permanent, of course.
Gildor, I think Gildor probably would have heard of you by now, Christian. He knows that you're an eccentric, and he just kind of chuckles, and then he immediately gets serious again. But he's like, your first task is to recover it. In your travels back here to Burin, if you'd like to study it, feel free. But just so you know, generally speaking, really only the heir of Elendil, the king of Arnor and Gondor, the High King, was really the only one who was able to see across the straight road, generally speaking.
So I guess my character would say that this is like one of the greatest heirlooms of my people, and gifted to the elves when we first landed on Middle-earth when Numenor fell into the sea. And it's all that we have that connects us with the gods, so it's a precious item, and it's fallen into bad hands. So you get it back.
So you're gonna need me to burgle it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, can you guys tell the difference between our voices?
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that one person said all those things.
Matt is a professional actor, so he will assume an accent starting now.
Oh man. Hey, me, Tesoro took.
No.
Wow, boy.
Can you make him a pirate?
A pirate.
No. Alright.
No, all right.
Remember Olaf?
Olaf.
No, it was Olaf? Yeah.
In the previous campaign, Max had a dwarf with a Russian accent. And Olaf.
Guys spoke in third person.
Oh god, that's awesome.
Well, we'll work on it. Yeah, we'll work on it.
All right, so I guess does the Hobbit or the Dwarf have anything to add?
Yeah, Tesoro's like he's getting pretty excited. He likes the idea of magical objects of importance, and he's bouncing up and down a little bit in his chair, like a little kid with some ADHD.
Burin really doesn't have much to say. I mean, he's here because he was asked to be. There's not a whole lot in it for me. I'm here to assist because King Dane requested.
Right, because the king under the mountain asked you to. Right.
Exactly.
And you have your own reasons as well, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's secondary plot working.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so I guess Gildor at this point would say, I don't know if you've heard, but the enemy Sauron has risen in the east in Mordor, and has declared himself openly. This was done about 2 years ago. Maybe some of you had heard of it, but even more recently, the kingdom of Umbar to the south has aligned themselves with Sauron. And what has happened over the last few days, and I can give you a date here. So on October 4th, the Elendil Stone was stolen. So this is going back about 12 days. So all of you have sort of gotten this information about 12 days ago. That's give or take a day. And he said what happened was these Umbarian soldiers, these pirates, sailed up the coast and came into right into Lindon and basically anchored off the coast, snuck into the Tower Hills, killed a bunch of the guards, and made off with the Elendil Stone. They tried to get back to their ships, but the elves had found the ships at that time and had burned them in the harbor. So these pirates had no place to go, and they sort of roamed the lands a little bit, but they know that they headed northeast. And so what he's thinking is, based on the geography that you know of the area, all the way over to the west. There's a little bay that leads to a river, and there's a mountain range above and below. Do you all see that? Yep. So those are the Blue Mountains, and the Grey Havens are basically right near the mouth of the river. I think it's called a mouth. Is that right? That's the mouth of the river, or is that the delta? I can never remember.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's where the Grey Havens are. That's where generally the elves leave Middle Earth. That's kind of where their ships were parked and burned. So if you look at the map, you're going to see some places that you probably remember from movies or the novels. Angmar. And Mount Gundabad to the east of that, sort of just east and kind of almost a part of the Misty Mountains, sort of east of Angmar. And so that's the direction that these folks headed. And if they have truly aligned themselves with Mordor, he says that either Angmar, which is no longer the realm, the Witch King was ousted from Angmar, but there are still sort of foul forces in Angmar, and Mount Gundabad could be another place that they had gone.
So I'm just gonna. Does Gildor? Do you have any better idea where they might have gone? Do you have any sense of where they might have gone, or you're just thinking it's like these two places where they might be?
Someone else? Anybody want to?
I saw Tesoro and I saw the markings of Umbar soldiers. What was it called? In the Barrow Downs, not 2 days ago.
Okay.
My guess is that they're heading to Angmar. That place holds great evil.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
It seems. Yeah, I don't like any of this. I suppose it seems a little bit convenient, but what do we think? Is that where we're gonna head out for? Angmar?
So, would I have a better sense of the direction that they went?
Yeah, I mean, the folks that the horse prints that you saw headed in the same direction that Gildor suggests, and that's northeast towards, not necessarily to the old cities of Arnor, but more sort of around them, up towards sort of Angmar, sort of the Ettenmoors area. So Gildor basically says, what I would recommend, I've rallied your brethren, Feredir, and they, and so rangers from all over this from the area have gone north to try to block their escape into Angmar. And so what I would recommend that you do is head east along the Great Road. And when you get to the River Horwell, to the Ettenmoors, and hopefully you can cut them off. That would be my recommendation. But he says, obviously you have a ranger with you who would be able to better tell once you get to the Ettenmoors.
Yep. The Ettenmoors. So the Ettenmoors are leave a sour taste in Feredir's mouth, sort of because that's where 2 kings ago, I think it's Aragorn's grandfather was kidnapped by trolls and killed, and my grandfather died there defending him. So it's also a very dangerous place.
Does anyone want to share anything from their origin sessions that might be relevant to Gildor, to the rest of the group?
We found this strange relic in one of the Barrow Downs.
And where did you say you found it?
In one of the Barrow Downs. Tesoro fell into the company of some... what were they called again? They were...
The Blackwall gang?
Yeah, the Blackwall gang. He fell into some trouble with them, and he was helping them recover some treasure from one of the Barrow Downs.
They were all scared and ran away too.
Yeah, they were.
Good.
So you still have the relic, guys.
Right, good.
Did you want to put it down on the table?
Yeah, I want to put it down on the table, and I want to say, Angolan, Gildor, perhaps one of you to know more about this.
So
Yeah,
take a chance.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, take a chance and read this, or take a moment and read this.
That's what I'm doing.
No,
Angolan would be really interested when he was talking about that.
the Barrow Downs, right? Yeah. So someone can talk about the Barrow Downs if they wish, but if you want to let everybody read this, it's essentially a diamond with 4 points, and on each of the points, and some of them are like scrawled, etched in this plate.
Some of these are like people's notes too, right?
Yes. So on each of the points, so the question marks are sort of the notes, the things that someone had written, like for example on the sort of the right hand point, it says that which can see along the straight road. That's sort of etched in there, and more of like a permanent bold face, and then the others are kind of, you can see like notes written. The towers, the Palantiri ?
Yeah. Okay.
Probably not Christian. I mean, you've heard of them, but you don't know a huge amount about them. If someone were to give a history of the Barrow Downs, it would probably be Feredir.
Okay, so I can just really quickly say that towards the end of the kingdom of Arnor, it was split up into 3 kingdoms, and the evil witch of Agmar sort of one by one turned them against each other until they fell into ruin. And the Barrow Downs was part of the kingdom of so he sent the Barrowites to infest that area, and basically there was also a famine that rolled through and killed a bunch of people, and now the Barrowites occupy all of the tombs there.
So even farther back, guys, during the first age and during the second age, the people that lived in this area were buried in mounds of earth, barrows, and the mounds are kind of it's a combination of grave and hill, right? Barrow Downs, when the Witch King sent the Barrow Wights. These white creatures, they're not white, but they're these wights are these undead creatures that essentially can assume any form, and a lot of times they'll animate the bones of past kings of Arnor. And in the Fellowship of the Ring, the hobbits have to be saved by Tom Bombadil from the Barrow Wights.
Mm-hmm. In the movies, they just go to Bree.
Yeah,
they're just like, yeah, now we're good.
Yeah. They skip from
in the movie.
Yeah, no, they skip from Buckland to Bree.
I have such a vivid image of it in my head, but I feel like I saw it in the movies too. All right, well, I guess Raiken gets up from the table and sort of walks over and just stares into the fire, sort of pensively.
A brooding character.
Yeah.
So Gildor looks a little when he sees the name Pterodon, he says, "Interesting." He's an old Numenorian mystic, and he had kind of create like if you think Rasputin, right? Like kind of like he's kind of like a mystic, like metallurgist. Like he dabbled in all kinds of weird things, and he had these ideas that no one really remembers explicitly. But this plate that you have from his barrow kind of sums it up pretty well. Does anyone have it?
Who was that you said? What's the name?
Pterodon. And Marco, you made a really good point to Max about sort of the sort of animosity or the sort of the feeling of the Numenorians who were exiled about their elven kin. Do you want to?
Yeah. So aside from the faithful, which are the essentially from which everyone's line descends from, the majority of the Numenorians over time sort of became dissatisfied with the fact that they were not immortal. They forgot the gifts so basically they were granted this long life compared to other humans for their deeds at the end of the first age, and but slowly over time they began to resent the gods and the elves for their immortality, and they questioned why they couldn't live forever as well. And so instead of believing in the gods and following their designs, they a lot of them descended into obsession with prolonging their life and trying to reach immortality, to the point where actually a lot of the Numenorians ended up being tricked by Sauron and started worshipping Melkor, the evil god. But so it seems like Pterodon was one of the Numenorians that was slowly gaining this obsession for immortality and wanting to attain that more than anything else.
Also called Black Numenorians.
Yeah.
We'll get going here on the road here pretty soon. But so Gildor looks at Pterodon's name and he looks at these 4 points and he says, "The Palantiri may just be the beginning." And so, by the way, if you're entitling this, I think our group should be called the Inglorion Bastards, as I put in chat.
Well done.
Thank you.